I'm a retired nurse, and all of us are pretty fed up with the pandemic and realize it's been mishandled incredibly bad. It drives me crazy. I live in North Dakota. We have a governor who is Republican, who kisses Trump's ass, and we're North Dakota smart, and we didn't wear masks, and now we're top in the country. Wow! And we don't have the medical facilities to take care of them. Now that is sad. That's not the way I want to be taken care of, and that's sure as hell not the way I want my family to be taken care of.
Hi there, it's Andrea. Please get out to the voters to get their votes in on or before November 3rd, because Justice Kavanaugh has basically said he believes that all of these decisions from the state should be decided upon by the Supreme Court. If mail-in ballots are postmarked the 3rd, November 3rd, but they arrive afterwards, they may not be counted, and that could be thousands upon thousands of votes that will not be counted for Biden. Please encourage voters to make sure their ballots arrive on or before November 3rd, not postmarked on November 3rd.
It's Thursday, October 29th, just 5 days from the election. And just like a 70-year-old at a transportation-less Trump rally, we're about to get viciously cold. Today is Character Day on Vote for America, and we'll be talking with the Lincoln Project's own Ron Steslow, Dr. Art Markman, and a Lincoln voter who contributes more in a day than Trump has in a lifetime. And now our host, Lincoln Project co-founder, Jennifer Horn.
And welcome to Vote for America on LPTV. I'm so glad that you are joining us today. Just a quick reminder that from now until Election Day, our time has changed. We're on at 2:30 p.m. In the Eastern time zone and 11:30 in the morning in the Pacific time zone. We hope that you'll be able to continue to join us. And as you can see, we are in our fancy new studio that we've been enjoying so much. And just to rest assured, we are doing everything recommended by the CDC and other organizations to make sure that everyone here is safe and healthy. Everyone in the studio wears a mask unless they're sitting right here at this table. When I get up and walk away, I put my mask on so that we are protecting both ourselves and each other at all times. So very few reminders left for you. It's only 5 days. Oh my God, can you believe that we're already at 5 days to the election? We started this, we were at 60 some days. And here we are, we're finally there. I was talking to somebody this morning who was saying she was so glad that we were so close that she can finally relax. Like, who can relax 5 days out? This is when I am the most stressed and the most wound up about it all. But I just want to share some quick information with you. First of all, voter registration has closed in every state at this point, but there are some states where you can still register, where you can register on Election Day, same day registration. So you can go to vote.org to find out if your state is one of them. For example, in New Hampshire, you can vote the same day that you can register the same day that you were voting. So vote.org if you want to find out if your state is one of those same day registration states. You want to make sure that you have that. And then also, I want to just share a little bit of polling with you, a little updated polling that you just saw a second ago. We'll, I think, go back to that now. And the reason this is interesting, because we always talk to you from the Lincoln Project not to get too hung up on national polling. It's the state by state polling that really, informs where the electoral college is going to go. And you can see here that in a lot of these swing states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, North Carolina, even Arizona, that Joe Biden is up state by state by state by significant margins in some of those states, by 9 points, by smaller margins, by 3 points in some of those states. And I bring that to you to inform you, but also to warn you just how easy it is for these numbers to change in the last couple of days. We cannot feel confident. I want you to feel reassured, but I do not want you to feel arrogant or overly confident of the outcome. If you have not voted yet, make sure you have a plan to vote on Election Day, or if you're in a state that has early voting, maybe over the weekend would be a good time to get out there, maybe spend a Saturday afternoon in the sun online and make sure that your ballot is cast and that your voice is heard. That's what this whole show has been about from the beginning. That's what the Lincoln Project has been about from day one. And whether your circle of influence are Republicans or Democrats or independents, we need you engaged from now until Tuesday in turning out every Joe Biden vote across the country. This has been our goal from the beginning. You're part of that team. We're so grateful for that. Can't take the foot off the gas until Election Day is over and the last polling place has closed. So we're going to jump right into things today. I'm really happy to welcome our first guest. Not only is he a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, he's a good friend of mine, one of the really good guys out there. Ron Steslow is an independent political strategist as well as a brand and marketing expert. He is our digital guru here at the Lincoln Project. I'm so happy to welcome you to the show, Ron.
So great to be here, Jen.
It's good to have you. We've been talking about this for a while.
We have been talking about this for a while, and it's really fun to get to do this show with you. And we've had so many similar conversations off the air. So
and also people should know you're the guy behind the mic on the podcast.
I know.
You are the Lincoln Project podcast.
Yeah. And
so
I'm
it's
not
fun
used
for
to
me
not
to,
being.
I know. I said it's fun for me to have you in my space now. Isn't this cool? You were saying just before we came on the air, like you don't like the cameras and all.
Yeah, it's very, very unusual.
It's different.
For me.
You're not,
yeah,
well, and my media background is radio.
Right.
So I'm the same. I used to say all the time, I have a great face for radio. Like I said, I wouldn't, so I didn't have to worry about the cameras. It's a whole different thing here now. But I wanted you to come in and talk about the same thing that we've been talking about on this show from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's so important that we defeat Donald Trump in this election.
Yeah.
You were a lifelong Republican, like myself.
Yeah.
Until 2016.
Yeah.
What happened?
Until Donald Trump became the nominee. Yeah. I inherited Republican politics from my family. I grew up in a very conservative evangelical home with lots of love, but it was very sort of culturally Republican. And so when I started working in politics at a really young age, it's really the only thing I've ever done. Republican politics was the default. And so I spent the last 17 years working in that world. And growing up gay in an evangelical family is, comes with lots of baggage. And over the course of my personal life and my career, I had a lot of deconstructing to do, not just my religious worldview, but also, those things are intertwined with Republican politics, especially Republican culture. And so, over the course of my career, I began to feel a lot less loyal to the Republican Party as a brand, and a lot less enamored with, the policies that that Republican leadership was advocating for, especially the policies that are written out in Republican platforms, like at the state level and even at the national level. And so in 2015, I ran Carly Fiorina's marketing and branding on her presidential campaign. And when Donald Trump became the nominee in the presidential race, it became clear to me that that even the good things that I identified with in the Republican Party were only there as an electoral calculation, and that actually the only thing that ever mattered was winning at all costs. And so I realized then that the story I'd been telling myself, which was that I could do more good to change the trajectory of the party from the inside than from the outside, was not true. That was a pure delusion. And that actually Donald Trump was not an aberration, but as our friend Stuart Stevens says, he is the byproduct of the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of Republican politics. So I decided then that that was not a brand, it was not not an organization that I wanted to continue working for or in, and so I registered as an independent after the 2016 election.
And that's a process that so many of us who've been Republicans our whole lives have been going through, especially that for a lot of us triggered by Donald Trump's nomination, reevaluating the party, and is it what we thought it was, and how can this be? I want to back up a little bit to something that you just mentioned, though, when you were talking about that. You talked about the Republican culture, Republican platforms that get voted on by Republican committees in every state and at the national level. I served on the national board for Log Cabin Republicans as an LGBTQ ally. And when they decided to endorse Donald Trump in 2016, I resigned from there. Talk a little bit about that idea of Republican culture and the things that Republicans continue to vote to include in their platform, and how that impacts what you're saying.
Look, they didn't even change the platform one syllable from the 2016 platform, as we know, for this re-election campaign. And we're talking about not just the leader of the country, Donald Trump, he's also the leader of the Republican Party. Right. And he, famously joked about, Mike Pence and LGBT people as, well, don't ask that guy because he wants to hang them all.
Right, as if that was funny.
As if that was funny.
Right.
We could do chapter and verse on all the ways that that Donald Trump, the Trump administration, has been hostile toward LGBT people and equal rights. And I think if you have never had your rights hang in the balance of a Supreme Court decision, then you can't really identify with what LGBT people, what all minority people in this country have felt at the hands of the Republican Party. And this administration has shown over and over and over again that all they really care about is winning. And to them, the political power that they get from the evangelical community for engaging in this transactionalism is more important than the lives and the rights of LGBTQ Americans. So,
yeah, and I would say what has been really discouraging for me is it's not just that all they care about is winning, because winning suggests a fair game. That we're all engaged in the same, that we're all playing by the same rules, and somebody wins and somebody loses, and next time maybe the next guy wins.
Yes.
What we've seen from the Republican Party over the last 3.5, almost 4 years, is kind of this gross grasping at power.
Yes.
It's about holding on to power,
yes,
no matter what you have to do, even if you don't win fair.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, your viewers may remember the event that we had at Cooper Union in February of this year, where on the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's very famous Right Makes Might speech, his Cooper Union address, we got to stand at the same podium that he stood at and talk about what we saw as the betrayal of Lincoln's values, the betrayal of the foundation of the Republican Party. And in that speech that we were celebrating, he said at the very end, speaking to a Republican audience who already agreed with him but was lacking the courage to do something about slavery in this country, he said, "Let us have faith that right makes might. Let us dare to do our duty as we understand it. Might makes right for Donald Trump.
Right.
It's the opposite. He's a strong man." What Lincoln was trying to tell the Republican Party and us was that the moral high ground creates political power. And Donald Trump is the antithesis of that principle. He doesn't care about the moral high ground. He couldn't spot it with a telescope.
And we are all now, not just we, disaffected Republicans, but we as a nation, we as a people are now living with exactly the consequences that Abraham Lincoln was trying to protect us from when he made that speech.
Yes.
That was amazing, wasn't it? To be at that event, to be at Cooper Union, everyone.
It was very
that
special,
was overwhelming.
very humbling.
So let's take it, let's kind of move forward from there then. Your position is not just, I'm gay, I can't vote for a Republican administration. That's not what this is for you. It's much bigger than that.
No, but that is part of it. Let's be clear. In 2018, this administration issued a ruling that allowed healthcare workers to deny treatment to LGBT people on the basis of, they call it the conscience rule. This is all done under the guise of religious freedom, but the way the rule is written, they are allowed to do it for whatever reason they say, whatever reason they choose.
The administration has also rolled back protections on equal employment protections, education, housing.
Yes.
They have rolled back significant protections.
They've banned transgender people from serving in the military. The list goes on. And so when I hear my LGBTQ friends who are voting for Donald Trump, I cringe because he does not care about them. He does not care about you. He does not care about me. He does not care about anybody but himself.
They're just another voting demographic that he can manipulate to his advantage, along with evangelicals, he's trying to do it with suburban women now, trying to scare them that, there might be black people coming in their neighborhood or something, that's crazy stuff.
Yes.
I think that's the hardest thing for people to really accept, is to really acknowledge and believe that a president of the United States could be that lacking in care for humanity, for our value as human beings.
He is incapable of empathizing with the experiences of the Americans that he is supposed to be representing and serving.
So, and we say that here all the time. I mean, that's essentially the Lincoln Project, mantra out there, that he does not care about you. And it's not a political, like a political, campaign that we, this clever thing that we came up with. How can we convince people? It's who he is. It's how he's governed. It's who he's always been.
It's who his family is as well.
Well, we see that with Jared and Vasanta.
Listen to the comments. We just saw them yesterday from Jared Kushner, released as part of the Woodward tapes. where he's saying we're going to take the country back from the doctors. Trump is taking the country back from the doctors
and scientists.
Doctors and scientists
Yes.
at a time when the country is desperate for accurate and scientific information from the medical community about how to protect themselves.
Right.
They're saying, no, Trump is more important than that. We want him to be the top story.
Well, that's a good point, because it is about the top story. It's not about that they think Trump has some really good policy that if only we could execute it. It's just a constant feeding of his narcissism and his ego that is to an ill degree.
Yes.
The man is not well in that way.
It's exactly why he was unable to denounce white supremacists at that debate.
At the debate.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Why? Because the best defense that I heard, which is despicable, was from Rick Santorum right after that debate, where he said, well, the president doesn't like saying bad things about people who like him. Because it's all about praising his ego.
But this goes back to what you said at the beginning. Decades ago, the Republican Party nominee would stand at a microphone and show them the door and tell them to take the exit.
Yes.
And so how this has developed over all these years, and it's fed in large degree by exactly what Rick Santorum said, by politicians who think they have to hold on to every single person who might like them for any reason.
Yes. But let's call that what it is, Jennifer. That is cowardice.
It's cowardice and it's bigotry.
Yes.
If you're going to embrace it and accept it, then you're part of it.
Yes. Which is what the entire Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate has done.
Because silence is complicity.
Yes.
But I want to go back a little bit. Also, you talked about Jared and Ivanka Kushner. They are part of this administration. They hold official roles in this administration.
Absolutely.
Which by itself is a problem.
Yes.
But Jared Kushner was speaking to the press the day before yesterday, saying that, trying to talk about this president, that he's done more for African Americans than any other president, and talking about how the president's policies, and framed it as the president can't want Black Americans to be more successful than Black Americans want to be.
Yes. And Vanity Fair so accurately captured that sentiment in a headline that read, in an electoral Hail Mary, Jared Kushner tells Black people that they're lazy and unmotivated.
Right, exactly. And add that to he's also told suburban women that we must be racist because we're worried about who might be coming into our neighborhood.
Yep. By the way, we should note that Georgia is currently a dead heat right now.
Yes.
And it will hinge on the Black vote, as we know.
Right.
So, how stupid are these people?
Well, they're not good at this. They're not good at politics. But we can't. We can't. They won in 2016.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to because I try to emphasize this when I get the chance. Not every person who voted for Donald Trump or is thinking about voting for Donald Trump now is an ugly, hateful racist or bigot. We have to understand what the challenges are that the American people are facing.
Yes.
But I think the most important thing is you and I are sitting here, we're almost out of time with you now, is being able to get that, make that argument to people that the first step to resolving the rise in, racial unrest, the riots that we've seen take place in our streets, to really, in a responsible manner, approach criminal justice reform, to get COVID under control, to get the economy back on track. Yeah. The first step for all of those things is to get Donald Trump out of the White House.
Yes. And to heal as a nation, to begin to heal as a nation. And he's incapable of facilitating that healing.
Right. And I think, I when it comes to the issue of character, which is something we're talking about today on the show with all of our guests, is when you make the comparison between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, two imperfect human beings, right? Because we all are. Yeah. And, neither of, Joe Biden is not a perfect person politically or personally, but when you look at them and compare their character and their willingness to serve, to put others above themselves, to acknowledge mistakes, to move.
Yes.
It seems to me like that's kind of an easy choice.
Absolutely, it's an easy choice.
Even if you're a Republican.
Even if
you're still a Republican.
Especially if you're a Republican. I would point your viewers to a video that David French, I think, it was a speech of him just speaking yesterday. David French, for everyone who's not familiar, is a conservative lawyer and religious. He speaks to religious freedom quite a lot.
He's religiously and politically conservative.
Exactly. Right. And he, at this speech, I just saw it this morning, and the video was released yesterday, just eviscerates Donald Trump and the evangelical community for enabling this behavior, because, as he puts it, character is destiny. And I would also point them to Carly Fiorina's endorsement of Joe Biden. And, you know, I recently had the privilege of interviewing her for the podcast. And the entire through line of that conversation was about character and the importance of character in leadership, and the importance of having a leader who will make decisions behind closed doors when we aren't watching that are in alignment with their conscience and the moral good for the country. And I want to be really clear that, especially if you are a conservative, you should vote for Joe Biden.
Yes. This is the argument I've been making.
Especially if you are a conservative.
All along.
And if you want to hear how a conservative woman who ran for president of the United States arrived at the conclusion of not just voting for Joe Biden, but endorsing him, listen to that episode, because you'll understand by the end of it that
the podcast episode.
The podcast episode.
The Carly
the Lincoln
Fiorina
Project
podcast episode. Yes.
She arrived at that conclusion because of her principles and not despite them.
Right.
We're not asking anyone to set aside their beliefs or their principles or their values. We're asking them to step up and be courageous enough to vote in alignment.
And that's a great place for us to wrap up together here. I am a conservative. That's why I'm voting for Joe Biden. That's why I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. The values and the principles that I learned as a child, growing up in a Catholic household that went to Mass every Sunday together as a family, those lessons are why I am an LGBTQ ally. It's why I advocate for Joe Biden today. It's why I spoke up against Donald Trump in the beginning of all of this. And I do think there's an opportunity still for people in these final days, these last 5 days before the election, who have not voted yet, to really think about what are the principles and values that you learned as a child that you want to pass on to your children. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really happy that you came in, that you're able to share your story and your time. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Ron Steslow, he is the digital magic man behind the scenes at the Lincoln Project. We're so happy that he was able to be with us. We're going to be back in just a few minutes, but before that, here's some more messages for you from the Lincoln Project.
This is what's come of the Republican Party today. The party of Lincoln, Grant, Eisenhower, Reagan, Bush 41 and 43.
May God bless America.
What would Abraham Lincoln think if he saw his once proud party today? The anger.
Knock the crap out of him, would you?
The division. The hatred. The scars.
The president called the American war dead suckers for getting killed.
Now, ask yourself, is this your Republican Party? Is this the party you were so proud of being a part of?
Now just the third president in U.S. history to be impeached.
Are you represented in this party? Are these the faces of your Republican Party?
6th close Trump associate to be indicted for a felony.
Is this you?
I voted for Trump.
Then decide.
Today, I couldn't be more ashamed of myself.
Will you let your party be hijacked forever?
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Dear daughters, we want so much for you. We want you to grow up proud and strong in an America that believes in you, believes in your worth, believes in your potential to be whomever you want to be, free of name-calling.
Crazy Nancy. She was nastier than even Pocahontas. That fat, ugly face of hers.
Free of body shaming.
She would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
Free of bullying.
That's okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
Where ambition is applauded, not vilified, because ambition is not a dirty word. Where confidence is celebrated, not torn down. Where there is no height you cannot reach. We want you to be proud to be nasty. Nasty isn't a 4-letter word. It's who you are. Strong, determined, brave. This is the America we want for you. For you, dear daughters. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And welcome back to Vote for America on LPTV. We're so glad that you're with us. And just a quick reminder for you, our last guest, Ron Steslow, he's that voice. He's that soothing voice you hear on the Lincoln Project podcast. So I encourage you to look for the podcast wherever you listen to yours. It's available everywhere. It's called Lincoln Project. And really happy to be able to welcome our next guest today as well. He's an pretty extraordinary young man, I have to say. At age 6, he fled horrific violence in Mexico to come to the United States. After many years, he was fortunate enough to become a DACA recipient, which enabled him to fulfill his dream of becoming a paramedic here in the United States. Please welcome Jesus Contreras. Jesus, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's great to have you here. Let's kind of jump right into your story, Jesus. When the DACA program passed in 2013, your life literally changed overnight, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a night and day difference. Being able to have a driver's license, have a social security number, and have the freedom to be able to become a paramedic with DACA was life changing. It was amazing.
And let's talk about that a little bit more. Tell me a little bit about what it was like for you growing up, and what was that change really all about? What it was like before DACA, what your concerns were, and then to open that door to you to where and also we should remind people you came here when you were 6 years old, when you
Right.
were a child.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit more about the differences between before DACA and after.
Yeah. So I came to this country completely undocumented. Grew up in the public school system. Come time to graduate, and around the time of senior year, I took a paramedic or an EMT basic course that I could not test out of because I didn't have a driver's license or social security number. Furthermore, I couldn't go to college without having to apply as an out-of-state student or an international student, and really couldn't afford to go to college. Um, I was fortunate enough to have an athletic scholarship, go to college that way. And in 2013, my first year in college, the Obama administration thankfully was able to pass this temporary protection, DACA, Defer Action for Childhood Arrivals, that then enabled me to be able to become a paramedic because I was able to get my driver's license. I was able to get my social security number and a work permit. Um, Being undocumented was very fatiguing. There was a lot of doors that were shut for me as an undocumented individual. And with DACA, I just have that extra privilege and that ability to be productive and to maximize what I can contribute into this country. Um, there's 11 million undocumented at the moment who don't have those privileges like I do. And our privileges are only temporary. The administration is doing what they can to get rid of our protections. And it's very scary because I could go back to that same place.
And I think about you and everyone in your situation, all the other DACA recipients. You just referred to another 11 million undocumented people in this country, the majority of whom are an awful lot like you, who came here as young children, who want to contribute to the country, who've made a life here, who grew up here. How do you feel when you hear the President of the United States, who's supposed to be the leader of the free world, talk about immigrants the way that he does? That they're sending not their best people, that they come from S-hole countries. The way this president talks about immigrants, from the perspective of your experience and so many other people like yourself, how does that make you feel?
It absolutely infuriates me at times. I understand that he is not a very well-educated man. He's not a smart man. So I can't let that get my blood pressure up. But if we understand immigrants and immigration in general, we understand that people like myself are very very large parts of our community. We contribute so much, not only monetarily, but to our communities through serving at churches, through doing community services, through opening businesses. We do a lot for this country, and people don't see that. People just seem to think that the stereotype of gang affiliates or criminals is what we are, and that's just not the truth. In all honesty, as humble and privileged as I am to be a paramedic, there's hundreds of thousands of other DACA recipients that do things, that I would never imagine doing. They do so much for their communities and for their families and for this country. And the honest truth is that we are essential to this country.
And I know that you were a volunteer. You volunteered your services during Hurricane Harvey, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank
Because
you.
when we face emergencies and critical circumstances in this country, it's when just all of our neighbors step up and volunteer, and everyone willing to do their part, that we're able to get through it and to survive. And I thank you for being part of that.
Thank you.
So let's look ahead a couple of days. What if, Jesus, what if Donald Trump wins? What if he actually, as hard as we've all worked, as everything that we've all tried to come together to do to make sure he doesn't, what is it about another 4 years of Donald Trump that most disturbs or frightens you?
First of all, we'll speak it into fruition. It won't happen. Biden will win this year. But
Right.
if Donald Trump were to unfortunately win another 4 years, we would face further attacks on programs like DACA, TPS, DED, and attacks on the 11 million undocumented. We would continue to see this uphill battle for us, when we should have the complete support of the administration, Congress, and the Senate. We will not have that. We've only had Congress behind our backs. We've only had the Supreme Court to back us. But we need the complete support from not only them, but the Senate and the administration. With that, we can hopefully find resolution and permanent legislative solutions for us, DACA. And Trump will just continue to fight that. And if he grabs the hold of that seat again, he will not let us go. He will fight until we are deported. He will fight until DACA ends up like the TPS program, which is not active and current at the moment.
That's a great point. It's one of the things that we were just talking about with our previous guest. DACA and immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, is another one of those issues that we've been grappling with through many administrations, and that this president's made no progress on. And the first thing we have to do, if we really care about it and want to make progress, is to get rid of Donald Trump. So, Jesus, I'm going to give you there. Believe it or not, there are still actually some people out there that are undecided voters in this race.
Right.
And we do a pretty effective job here of pointing out the failures of this president. So if you had the opportunity, if you had 30 seconds with an undecided American voter, somebody of good heart who's genuinely torn, what would you say to them about Joe Biden?
First and foremost, you're a big part to this country. Your vote, your single vote, can make the difference. Whether you're Republican or a Democrat, you should vote for the right thing, which is to get a president, Joe Biden, who is going to help us find those protections, who is going to help the next nurse, doctor, firefighter, DACA recipient obtain permanent legislative solutions. We ask you to vote on our behalf because on election day, we can't cast a ballot. So if there's any doubt in your mind whether you want to vote or not, or whether you want to vote for Trump or Biden, rest assured that we'd really appreciate a vote for us, a vote for Biden.
Jesus, that was incredibly eloquent. Thank you very much. I'm so happy that you were here to share your story. I really am grateful for it. I know it's hard for people sometimes to come out and share their personal stories. This is such an important election, and I hope you have a terrific weekend. I'm really happy you were with us today. Thanks.
Thank you all at the Lincoln Project.
Thank you so much. And I love that Jesus is a Lincoln voter too. That's what it's all about, and all of us coming together here. And his final words there, talking about whether you're Republican or a Democrat, and I would add to that, or a Libertarian, or an Independent, an undeclared. If you're somebody who's showing up on election day to register for the first time, we all need to stand together. We all need to come together in this important moment. Now, I want to bring a quick reminder for you of some of the things that we have been working on here that we've talked about frequently to you, are these great selfies that you've been posting out there for us. I would suggest that this is truly the most important election of our lifetime. I hate saying that because as someone who's been involved in politics, I know that voters, they hear it from us every cycle. Oh, this is the most important election of our lifetime. This really is. This really is. We have a president in the White House who is a threat to the future of American democracy. So we have a record voting taking place. More than 70 million Americans have already cast their ballots, absolutely shattering all early voting and absentee records. We want to see you celebrating our democracy, celebrating your right to vote. Tweet us a photo using the hashtag Vote for America selfie, or you can send us an email. We might feature you on the show. Getting out the vote is why we are here. This is what this has been all about. So inspire others by sharing your photo, your hashtag Vote for America selfie. And here's a cool one from Minka in New Jersey. She shared this great photo with us. She wrote, "Voting blue to take our country back. We wore white to honor those women who came before us to get the right to vote." This year is a big year for women's right to vote. And I love that they did that. I love that they shared it with us. It's so important for us as women to embrace the power that we have in our lives in every way. And boy, if you're a woman out there and you're thinking politics is a mess and it's ugly and dirty and I just don't want to participate, I'm telling you, the best way that you can make a change in that is by actually voting. Get out there and make sure you cast your ballot on election day for Joe Biden. Now, our next guest is somebody that we've been really eager to have here for quite a while. I apologize. Let me just jump up quickly here. He's a cognitive scientist, which I just find fascinating in and of itself. He's the director of a think tank at the University of Texas in Austin. He has a new book out called Bring Your Brain to Work, and he has a podcast that he hosts with Dr. Bob Duke called Two Guys on Your Head, which I find very entertaining. Please welcome Dr. Ark Markman. Welcome to the show, Doctor. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's great. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you. And you speak to something that we've really been talking about from the beginning of this show, how difficult it can be to have really important conversations with people that we love. And politics is always a little tough to talk about when you have a disagreement across the dining room table. But in this election, it has been particularly destructive to otherwise good, loving relationships.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. How has it gotten to the point where family members are literally not speaking to each other? And what can we do about that?
Yeah, it's become such a focus on winning, which has been, I think, an epidemic in politics. And I think we've actually forgotten something fundamental about what politics is supposed to be about. At the end of the day, it's not about winning the election to get into office. It's about being a part of the governance structure of this country to solve problems for the people. Right? We need, everything from roads to influencing the economy to keeping us safe internationally. That's what government does, and it should not be about winning. Now, when the people at the top make it all about winning, part of what that does is it floats back down to the nature of the conversations we have. Now our political discussions are about winning. They're about making sure that we support our side rather than asking a different question, which is, what is our commonality? What are the things that we all believe in? What are the problems that we all believe need to be solved, even if we disagree about how they need to be solved? And so because it's become about winning, there's a tendency for us to get sucked into those arguments with people. So what happens is we say something and so someone says something that might support Joe Biden, and then immediately someone on the other side comes back and says, well, what about Hillary? What about Obama? And it's easy to then get sucked into that and think we have to start pulling out who did something that was worse. And I think what we need to do instead is when somebody pulls out a talking point that's designed to try to win the argument, just ask a question. Like, why? Why do you believe that? So if you mention something about climate change and somebody says, climate change is just a hoax. Why do you believe that? What leads you to that? What's your reasoning behind that? And start a discussion. And then to start a discussion about, well, what do we agree on? So we agree on that, for example, that having some forests that aren't burning is probably a good thing. And so can we find some points where we agree and begin to have discussions about those points of agreement? In fact, one of the things that I've been saying is, this election is gonna end, next week, and our work isn't done. This focus on winning isn't just, we shouldn't just be focused on what's going to happen up till November 3rd. And after that, one of the things I'd love to see happen is from November 3rd to January 1st. Let's not try to win anything. Let's just talk about what we think we have in common. And the more that we engage in those kinds of discussions, the more that we can begin to diffuse the tension around these conversations. We don't have to jump right to solutions.
I love that. I love that idea of let's focus for a little while on what it is that we agree on. How much of this do you think is kind of fed by the idea, kind of the human instinct to not want to admit that we've been wrong, or to be hard, it's difficult to acknowledge that we've accepted, that false information, and the intentional efforts of politicians to manipulate that human instinct to not want to acknowledge that maybe we were wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be the one that says, you know what, I totally blew it. It takes a tremendous amount of self-confidence for someone to be able to say, you know what, you're right, I was completely wrong in that situation. And I think most of us would prefer to save face in those situations. So first of all, one of the things that I've been saying to everybody is, if as we all hope Joe Biden wins the election, you have to resist the urge to say, I told you so. And resisting that urge is not because we don't really want to do it and we know that it would feel good, but because we don't want to put people in a situation in which they have to immediately admit that something about what they believed was wrong. Again, we want to find commonality. It's funny, Donald Trump wrote this book, The Art of the Deal, and it's all about probably the worst way of going about negotiation possible, right? So for him, negotiation is all about winning. It doesn't matter how you get there, and it doesn't matter what happens to the other party as long as you win. And it turns out the most effective negotiators aren't the people who win negotiations. They're actually the people who treat negotiation as if they're walking side by side with their negotiation partner into the future. And they have to find a place to go. And the only constraint is they have to get there together. Because then you shift.
And of course,
go ahead. You have to shift.
No, I was going to say that's one of the things that kind of feeds what we're struggling with right now, is when it comes to politics, it's these two parties who can't imagine walking forward together toward the future, right? Arm in arm. And that feeds these disagreements, within our communities. So let's talk a little bit. I can't tell you how many people, Doctor, have reached out to this show on Twitter, on voicemails, have been guests on our show, telling genuinely heartbreaking stories about loved ones that they think they may never speak to again. We had a woman come on in her 60s who said she has a sister in her 70s that she hasn't spoken to in months because they just cannot be in the same conversational space together anymore. And that breaks my heart. That's a tragedy. How do people who are stuck in that place right now, what are the first steps? How do they repair that when this election is over, so that it doesn't really turn into something where they spend the rest of their lives not talking to people they love?
Yeah. It turns out that not everything in the world is about politics. I think most of us long for a day when we don't have to pay attention to the president of the United States every single day, because the president is calling out to himself every single day. And that's actually quite important, because I think we have turned so much of our discussion with other people into discussions that are politically tinged in one way or another. They don't have to be like that. Actually, if you have relatives where at the moment you can't really have a good political conversation with them, don't have that conversation, right? There's an old joke that the guy goes to the doctor and says, "Doc, it hurts every time I do this." And the doctor says, "Don't do that." We don't have to have that conversation. You can talk about baseball, you can talk about kids, you can talk about anything else. Get back into the habit of just having conversations with people. And the reason that you want to do that is because conversation is a fundamentally cooperative act. If I say something and you want to have a conversation with me, you have to listen to what I said, and then you have to add to what I said in some way. So in that moment, we have to think about the world similarly. So let's start doing that on uncontroversial topics that don't have to have anything to do with politics. And then as we begin to regain some trust that we can have conversations that don't have to devolve into arguments, then we might venture into the neighborhood of some things that might be more controversial. But again, we can do it from the perspective of where do we find our common agreement? Where do we find our common humanity? And I think that if we start to do that, we have to do that as individuals. And you know what? Our leaders are going to have to do that too. Right? We cannot have the Mitch McConnells of the world saying from the very beginning of Barack Obama's term that our goal is to make Barack Obama a one-term president, because that doesn't say we're here to solve problems together, to converse and to find our common patriotism. It says we're just here to make the next 4 years as miserable for the other side as possible. And if our leaders are doing that, how can they expect the rest of us to do anything any different?
Well, and I'm not going to ask you to diagnose the president. I know you can't do that. But as I'm listening to you talk about these family relationships and the dynamic there, I think that this president wants families to be divided amongst themselves. That I think he wants to be an issue that keeps people apart, that it feeds his ego to some degree, and that it's a way for him to manipulate us politically to advance his goals as well. Am I giving him too much credit in that?
Well, it's awfully hard to say whether you're giving him too much credit, but certainly the net effect of what he's done is that he has gotten us to spend so much time talking about him that we don't actually talk about the issues. We don't talk about the problems that we
Right.
face, and we don't consider the variety of solutions we need to consider in order to solve difficult problems. The reason why healthcare is a problem, for example, is because providing healthcare for as many people as possible requires funds and it requires controlling costs. These are not easy things to do. If they were easy, we'd do them already. And so they require bringing a variety of perspectives together to study this. It's much easier to say, my plan is coming in 2 weeks. In the meantime, let me send off 3 incendiary tweets that we can talk about for the next 24 hours. And if that and that divisiveness is helpful there because it creates focus on that conversation. If we all agreed that we didn't need to pay attention to those tweets, then that strategy wouldn't work, and we'd be forced to demand substance. And so, one of the reasons that I'd like to see us focus on creating commonality and have those conversations is because it will demand more substance out of our politicians.
Right. So usually my last question for our guests are, if you had 30 seconds to speak to an undecided voter, what would you say to them right now? I want to give you a different take on that one, Doctor. If you had that 30 seconds, regardless of who they're planning to vote for, of what party they affiliate with, if you were speaking to an American voter who feels hurt and broken by the process that we have been through and are looking to the other side of this election, with the hope for unity and for a little bit of healing, what would you tell them if you had 30 seconds of what they can do to be a part of that? What are steps that they can take right away to be part of that healing for our country?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And what I would say is unity is up to you. Okay. Unity is not going to happen because one party or another gets elected. Unity is going to happen because we reach out to our neighbors and begin to treat them like neighbors again. I would tell everybody, if you have political signs on your front yard, and I hope you do, I hope you were engaged in this election, on the day that this election is over, take those signs down. I want you to walk out and those neighbors who who had signs from other politicians, I want you to just talk to them. I want you to ask them how they're feeling. I want you to engage with them, and I want you to have conversations. The more conversations we have with people, the more we will understand why people do what they do, why they feel the way that they do. And don't worry if you still get points of disagreement. If somebody still says something to you that is designed to be inflammatory, you can turn the other cheek on this. It is up to you to demonstrate the world that you want for the next 4 years. And if we do that, we can actually make a difference in how we treat our politics over the next 4 years.
Dr. Art Markman, you have been terrific. I'm so happy that you were with us today. You can find him on his newest book, Bring Your Brain to Work. He's also one of the co-hosts of Two Guys on Your Head of the podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find him there. Dr. Markman, thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure to have you here today. This has been terrific.
It was really great to be here, and go vote for Joe.
Vote for Joe Biden. Thank you so much, Dr. Markman. And what I really loved was what he said at the very end there as he was closing things up. Unity starts with you. Unity starts with me. It starts with each of us as individuals. I think we forget sometimes, whether we're talking about our vote, our relationships with the people that we care about, trying to bring, healing and unity back to our country, whatever it is, we forget sometimes how powerful we are just as individuals, using our voice and our effort, being the first one to reach out, the first one to apologize, to as the doctor just said, to reach out to those, that neighbor who they might be taking down their Trump sign and you're taking down your Biden sign at the same time. As individual Americans, we have such great power when we put our voice to what we believe in and what we think is important. So we're going to be back in just a few minutes. We have another guest for you. Coming up is the political director from the Lincoln Project, Zach Chakowski, joining us again with some updates on our troll stomping that we have been doing here from the Lincoln Project for the last few weeks. But before that, here are some messages for you from the Lincoln Project.
We are at a crossroads, this country of ours.
And it's time to decide where you stand.
I stand for truth over lies.
I stand for equality.
I categorically reject white supremacy.
I believe our veterans are true American heroes.
Not suckers and losers.
I believe all Americans deserve access to affordable health care.
I believe a presidency should be transparent and not veiled in deception.
I stand for justice for all.
I believe in compassion and decency.
What do you stand for? Because the answers should be simple.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote against the very ideals upon which our country was founded.
Our democracy itself is at stake.
So be a man. Take a good look in the mirror and decide, is she worth defending?
We know where we stand.
We stand united.
We stand for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We stand with Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Is adultery no longer a big deal in Indiana and in America? I'd just love to know your thoughts. I, for one, believe that the seventh commandment, contained in the 10 Commandments, is still a big deal. It's the most important promise you'll ever make. And holding people accountable to those promises and holding people accountable to respecting the promises that other people make. To me, what could possibly be a bigger deal?
You can do anything. Grab them by the
Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And welcome back to Vote for America on LPTV. Before we get to our next guest, I just want to share an important reminder with you. We've been talking a lot about voter suppression, voter intimidation, and ways that you can become part of that army of Americans who care about democracy and care about free and fair elections. And that is the partnership that we have at the Lincoln Project with a great organization called CSAY 2020. It's a free and anonymous platform for voters to report instances of voter suppression in real time, which is what's so important about this. You can report any form of voter suppression, from voter intimidation or things like misinformation and broken voter machines. There are all sorts of ways that people get out there and try to intimidate and suppress the vote. You can report it in real time. So how does it work? It is a really easy, and I have to say, a really cool site. You just go to csay2020.com. You select the type of incident that you're reporting, write a quick description, just a sentence or two, add your location, the time and date of the incident, upload a photo or video if you're able to. I really encourage you to include a photo or video if you're able to. It's extremely helpful. And then click submit. It's that easy. From there, voting officials, the media, they will be able to see where and what is happening so it can be corrected and addressed in real time. As you can see, there are a lot of reports that have already come in that we've been tracking. I love this CSAY 2020. It really is the best of America. It's this opportunity. It's like we're out there crowdsourcing greater election integrity, protecting the integrity of what is the cornerstone of our democracy, and that is free and fair elections for all. So csay2020.com. I'm really happy that our next guest is with us today. This is not his first time with us here at Vote for America. I know that you have enjoyed him in the past. He always brings us such valuable information. He is the political director from the Lincoln Project, Zach Jackowski. Zach, welcome to the show.
Jennifer, thank you so much for having me on again.
It is really good to have you here. The last time you were here, we were talking about troll hunting, bot hunting, which I love. We've gotten really involved in trying to stop misinformation on the internet, especially on platforms like Facebook, where we know there's so much of it out there. Russia has been really effective at their disinformation campaigns. So let's start. We have this video that we want to share with everybody, and then when we come back, you can talk to us and update us on the most recent Lincoln Project troll hunting party that we had last night.
Fantastic. It was a fun one.
It was fun. Good. So let's see the video.
This is a fake post by Russian troll farms. Russian troll farms are large-scale orchestrated campaigns to promote pro-Putin and pro-Russian propaganda. Their goal is to use false information to undermine the U.S. election and Americans' sense of trust. Here's what you can do to help stop it. Step 1. Copy text. Step 2. We've identified a troll post. Paste the text above into the comments.
I love that, stoptrolls.com. That's the website that you want to remember, that you want to go to, where you can learn how to be part of this and go out there and join the army. Stomptrolls.com. So Zach, tell me more about this website, how it works, and also tell me a little bit more about our troll hunting party last night.
So we had an absolutely phenomenal time at the troll hunting party. And, I think one of the things that's so great about this website, and huge credit to the LPTV team, is that it makes it almost like a game. Now, what we're doing is very serious, trying to stop misinformation. And it's not just from Russia. It's from Iran. It's from China. It's from Saudi Arabia. It really, really makes a difference. We wanted to make it as fun as possible for folks. And I think we had a lot of fun last night in the troll hunting party. There were about anywhere from 50 to 100 folks in there throughout the evening. And we are doing another one tonight, and would love it if it's even larger. And would love to have y'all join us. Y'all can see on the screen, we had a good crew, and all credit goes to Bill and Adam from Own the Room, who put together a phenomenal program, brought this to our attention, and we couldn't be happier to be partnering with them to make sure that we stop the flow of misinformation as much as possible.
Yeah, I love the that screen we just saw with all those faces in there, everybody doing it together. And there was a point, I don't know if it showed in our clip of it just now, where everybody was waving at the camera at the same time, and it's just a cool thing to know that, yeah, there they are. So there you go. So there's the like I love that, because like, look at it, like that's the army of people who are trying to defend democracy.
Right.
I was saying the last time you and I talked about this, that this is so much more fun than a video game. Like this is real life. But we can't undersell what you're doing. The whole purpose behind Russian and Iranian and Chinese disinformation is to sow chaos in the United States, and they don't just do it in our country. It's to sow chaos among Western nations that are democracies. And if they can undermine our democracy and pit us against each other and get all of us engaged in that chaos, they win. So this is literally about fighting for the future of our country. And I love that.
And we all have that relative, that friend from high
right.
school, and they post something on Facebook or they say something crazy, and you're like, how did they end up thinking that? That is not
How
a thing.
Can you believe that?
Right, exactly. And what happens is these trolls amplify these posts, and more people see them, and then somebody else who's a real person shares them. And then you say, oh my goodness, my friend just said that the Pope has endorsed Donald Trump. I guess
Right.
that must be real.
Right.
It in fact is not real. It's never going to be real. But at that point, the misinformation has begun, and they're going to do that not just with Biden's track record or Trump's track record, but with the outcome of the election. So stopping this now and being proactive is going to make a huge, huge difference in ensuring there is a peaceful transition of power and that there isn't confusion about the outcome of the election.
That you just made a great point, and I hadn't thought about it that next step ahead. Those troll farms in these other countries are going to be out in magnified force on election day and forward, trying to convince people that the outcome is false, that the outcome is not credible, that trying to get them to fight it, to protest it, to take to the streets in some cases. This misinformation campaign, it's not always as obvious as the Pope endorsed Donald Trump, because of course the Pope did not endorse Donald Trump. It's not always that obvious, and I think like people have to be kind of keyed into it. They've got to be on alert for it before they even get online. And it's got the potential to be very dangerous if they're successful in the days following this election, because we know we're not going to have a firm outcome, a firm count for at least a few days.
And if you do find yourself, accidentally sharing misinformation, it's okay to admit it. It's important that you admit it. And I think I will go ahead and say, I know I've seen a headline and been like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Not thought twice about it, brought it up in conversation with a friend and found out that I had then shared misinformation. It happens to everybody. If you spend enough time online, you're going to see a headline that seems real, but very much is not. So make sure you're being careful. Make sure that you're talking with your friends and challenging assumptions in a respectful way, of course, if they're saying something that you feel or you have read is untrue. Because that's certainly going to be happening between now and the election, and then long after.
And we always say challenge with respect, not just because it's the decent way to speak to other human beings, but because without it, you make no progress. You can't persuade people if you're angry and insulting them. And we just want to remind everybody again that there is another troll stomping party tonight at 9:00 Eastern time. Where do they go for that? Is that going to? I apologize. There you go. But thank you, you guys.
Jennifer, are you going to be there?
I'm going to be on this one
Okay,
tonight.
it's a party.
I think this is super cool. And let's leave that up there for a couple more seconds. Write down that number. That's the Zoom meeting ID that you need. You go on Zoom, you enter that meeting ID. It's going to be at 9:00 Eastern time, a Russian troll stomping Zoom party where you get to join the forces that are literally trying to save democracy in our country. So that's the Zoom meeting ID. I'll say it one more time. You need to just write that down and jump on at 9:00 Eastern time. That is so cool, Zach. I love when you come and share that stuff with us. I love it. I love the way that we have figured out how to use, modern digital technical advancements to the benefit of the entire community, of the whole country. It's not just about playing games.
It really is amazing because, the Trump administration has done so little on this.
Yeah.
And it's heartening to see people just stepping up and being part of the solution. And, there's only about 15,000 roughly Russian trolls out there. There's a whole lot more of us than there are of them.
Right.
And together we can stop this nonsense.
There are more of us than them. That's the important message here. So, Zach, I'm going to have you stay with me for this last part of the show, where we always like at the end to hear from all of you, to answer your questions and hear your voicemail. So let's start with a voicemail. We have a voicemail today that I wanted to share with everybody to start.
My name is Bill. I'm from Northern California. My question is relatively simple. what can we do in these next few days before the election to calm the waters?
I love that question. We hear that exact question probably 100 times a day from all the different social media outlets. People are so worried about the possibility of protests, of riots, of violence, of the different things that could happen. This president has been so insightful and incendiary in his language. And the first thing that I would just say is to be cool. And this kind of goes back to what Dr. Markman just said, how as an individual, you can choose how you engage in this and the voice that you bring to it. Stay calm. You don't have to respond to the things that people put on social media. You don't have to respond to people trying to fight with you, in your face. Be a voice for reason. Be a voice for calm. Be the person who is messaging how important it is for us as a country that we keep it together until these, all the votes are counted, until the results are certified. That sort of thing. I think sometimes people forget that they don't have to engage in the craziness around them if they don't want to.
And in addition to that, I would also say join the troll hunter party this
right.
evening. That's something you can do to stop the incendiary headlines and misinformation out there. But I think what Jennifer said is exactly right. It's not easy to stay cool. Sometimes I know I get worked up.
I get angry, sure.
But we got to do our best, and we want to set a good example, not just for our children, but also for those that are around us, and model good behavior about this election. So Jennifer, I think we've got another couple tweets. You want me to read out the next one for you?
What's next?
Jennifer, what is the impact and road ahead for expanding voting access and cutting off the suppression we are seeing now by Trump and the GOP?
Yeah, you might be as well qualified as I am to answer that one. If they're talking about after the election, we really need an organized, a coordinated grassroots effort to address this issue, because the folks in Washington are not going to take it seriously unless they think their reelection is dependent on it. This is the problem with voter suppression and using tactics in the community to try to suppress turnout. They've been there for a long time. This is not the first cycle that's happened, but they've grown, they've gotten worse and more aggressive. And it's not until when we need the folks in Washington to do something, they don't take notice unless they think that their reelection is going to be at jeopardy.
It's so true. Vote in every election, not just every 4 years.
Right.
Vote in the primaries, vote in the specials, vote in the off-year municipal elections, whatever it may be. And I just want to echo exactly what Jennifer just said. It's so true. So our next question that we've got is, I know there have been published counts of how many Democrats versus Republican voters there has already been. Are there any thoughts on how many of the early voting Republicans are voting all Dem like me?
Well, first of all, it's exciting to hear like me, right? So that's the and I'm not even I'm a big believer that Republicans need a landslide loss if they are going to get back on track. So I love hearing that. How many people have already voted absentee ballot or early voting who are Republicans who voted all Dem? There's no way for us to know. And you wouldn't want there to be a way for us to know, right? You wouldn't want us to know how you voted. So what I would say about that is this is a good time to encourage all those Republicans to join you. So that question comes from somebody who is a Republican and still identifies as a Republican, but is voting for Joe Biden this year. So this is a great opportunity for us to encourage our fellow Republicans. I'm also still a Republican. That it's not too late to do the right thing, to kind of stand on the right side of history when it comes to this election. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way at all. I mean it very much as an open arms, that we all understand what the consequences of another Donald Trump term could be. And we can stop it. We can't take anything for granted. We have the ability to make our voices heard still in this election. I hope more Republicans will join us in doing that.
This next one is a really good one. Are any women in the suburbs not totally offended by Trump's pathetic, sexist attempts to win us over with lies and scare tactics?
Tell us how you really feel.
Do people believe suburban women are that simple? When Dirty Trump addresses suburban women, I feel like I need a shower.
Yeah, you know what? So do I. This, and I imagine a lot of men probably do too. I like this question. It's not really a question that has any kind of like a factual answer, but I like it because it speaks so directly to what's happening at this very moment in this election. every human being involved in politics knows that Donald Trump needs to win more suburban women if he's going to get a second term. And both campaigns, every PAC, every activist organization, everybody understands that the bulk of this is going to fall on suburban women. And so how does the president respond to that knowledge? He says things like, vote for me so I can put your husbands back to work. Vote for me so that low-income housing doesn't come to your suburban neighborhood. And we all know what Donald Trump means when he tries to make you afraid of low-income housing. What I love about this is that I know those voters, whether they're Republican or Democrat. I know those women. They're not a bunch of racists who are scared that people of color might move in next door to them. They are intelligent, empowered, successful, professional, full-time working women. Over 50% of them are over 40% of them are the primary breadwinner in their home. So I like the fact that Donald Trump is getting his messaging with them so insultingly wrong. It encourages me that women are going to step up and take control and do the right thing in this election. Is that our last one? Look at that. That went fast.
We flew through it.
I was looking to you to give me another question.
Well, I'll ask one if you want, but we're a little over.
So that's so. I want to thank everybody for sending them in. Keep tweeting at us. #AskVoteForAmerica. We want to answer your questions. We want to have you be part of it. Zach, thank you so much for being with us. Zach Jakowski, the political director from the Lincoln Project. He always brings us great information. Always happy to have us here. And of course, I also want to thank our guests who were with us today as well. Dr. Markman, Jesus Contrera, and I am forgetting my first, Ron Steslow, of course, my good friend and fellow Lincoln Project co-founder. We're very happy to have had them with us today. But I also want to give you a heads up about something else that really cool that is coming up on our show on Monday. We're going to make that show all about you. You're going to have the opportunity to call in and be a live guest, be a live part of our show. You'll be able to do it via Zoom. There's the Zoom meeting ID up there on the screen for you. Please write it down. We'll show it to you again tomorrow. We'll have it up there again on Monday. But write down that Zoom meeting ID. You'll be able to call in live and be a part of our show. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be cool, especially on that last day before the election. So, oh gosh, there's been a lot today. So let's wrap up with our closing argument, as we've been doing all week. You know, the final week before the election is when the candidates and the campaigns make their closing argument to the voters. So we're doing that here at Vote for America and Lincoln Project as well. And today's closing argument is about character. And we've talked about it in different ways throughout the day today. But I want to just make the comparison, because I believe deeply that the overwhelming majority of the American people want the same thing, that we agree more than we disagree, that we want a country that is prosperous, where all of our neighbors and friends and family feel invested, where the entire community is lifted up by the efforts of our leaders. And I believe that all Americans want leaders who have character and integrity. And that what we've seen from Donald Trump is unlike any time in the past when Republicans would try to criticize somebody for a Democrat for having an affair, or a Democrat would try to criticize a Republican for doing something, inappropriate. That's not what's happening with Donald Trump. He's a man who lacks care. He does not care about anybody other than himself. And we have seen that come to a dangerous degree. It has put our country in genuine danger with our foes around the world. It has hurt us as a people. And it has, in the most horrific way, with his management of the pandemic, actually cost us over 227,000 lives so far. Our loved ones, people that we care about so deeply. It is because Donald Trump completely lacks character. But that's not the way it has to be, because we do have a choice in this election. And when it comes to character, there could not be a greater difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I want to share something with you that I think makes that point more eloquently than I can.
Hi, Joe. Hi. I'm from town. My son's in the service. I just came to see you. He's in Quantico. He's in the Marines. Can I have a picture of me and you, please? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Your son will understand this. When you see him, you give him his command
I haven't
coin.
seen him. Oh, my God.
Okay? Tell him he's the best fighting force in the history of the world.
You don't understand what that means to me.
I do. Every more I do.
I haven't seen him in over a year.
Tell him I said thank you,
Oh, my
thank you,
God. Thank you.
So I understand what that coin means to her. My son served in the Marines. And when the Vice President of the United States hands you a command coin to give to your child who's in the military, it's an extraordinary act. Joe Biden could have walked away from that woman after the selfie. He could have said thank you for his service. He doesn't have an unlimited supply of those coins. He's got a couple in his pocket probably every time he goes out the door. And he shared it with that woman, and you saw how she came to tears, because when somebody appreciates what your own child is willing to sacrifice, that's what it does to you. Donald Trump thinks our military are suckers and losers and idiots. Joe Biden thinks that our sons and daughters who serve deserve our gratitude and our support, and that the mothers and fathers of those people deserve equal respect. Joe Biden is a good man. He's not a perfect man. I don't make the argument that he's going to be a conservative president, or that he's never made a mistake, or that he never will. But Joe Biden acknowledges when he makes a mistake. He has learned from his mistakes. He discusses them openly. He has empathy and compassion, and treats every person he meets with dignity. All of the problems that we face as a country, the first step to solving them is to have a leader who cares about the people of this country more than he cares about himself. That is why I'm voting for Joe Biden. That's why I think not just Democrats, but conservatives and Republicans should look at him and recognize that he is the leader we need today in this moment, because character matters. Thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you've enjoyed this show as much as I have. I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow on Vote for America on LPTV, where we will be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you.
This is America, and it's hurting. Right now, we're getting knocked down by the very people who should be lifting us up. Our families and our neighbors are sick, and we're being lied to. They want to scare us into believing it has to be this way. It doesn't. In the past, when change was needed, we've stepped up. Now, it's time to step up again. This moment is not about Democrat or Republican. It's about being on the right side of history. We must set aside our differences, stand together, united, and ask, what can I do to help? It's time to put people ahead of politics, to put country over party. It's time to vote for America.
Hi, this is Lauren. I'm from Portland, Oregon. My question is, one thing I've learned from the 2016 election is that, personally, I think the office of the president has too much power. Do you think President Biden would ever consider reducing those powers?
Hello, I'm Karen. I'm an independent voter from Michigan. Normally, in a normal election, we have seen exit polling done, and that serves as sort of a critique of the accuracy of the original polls. And I have not heard anything yet about exit polling being done.
Look, Donald Trump needed a knockout. He didn't get it.
Yeah.
He needed to really fundamentally alter the terms of this debate, in terms of this campaign, and he didn't get it. And you could see that he had been beaten to within an inch of his life by whoever's advising him now, begging him to not go out there and be crazy. But as Reed said, the audience demands a different thing. And Trump only has one real audience, and that's his fans.